Hi, Zizaran here with another video, and I wanted to make like a sum up and sort of my thoughts on the Baeclast with Chris Wilson yesterday, and talk a little about it, give you the guys like my thoughts on a summary, and also like go over um just like the points that I felt was the most important. Obviously, it's a very long podcast. I'm gonna try to make it as short as I can. And for those that don't know, I'm gonna be having a follow-up podcast with at least me and Mathel so far, where we're going to talk to Chris, which I think is going to be next Wednesday, basically the same time as the last one, from what I understand. Not everything's set in stone yet, but I'm going to try to, during the next few days, try to talk to different parts of the community, because obviously I represent a very small amount of people, even though I have a very big voice. So I'm going to try to learn more, especially about what I feel is the most underrepresented group in the community, which is a very large part, which is the people that are actually struggling in yellow maps, because let's face it, there's no content creator with that amount of hours just struggling in yellow maps. So I've been spending a lot of today talking to people and stuff, but let's look through the podcast and what happened and what I feel was like the most important things. First up, there is a lot of changes coming in 3.16 and 3.17 that just sound really, really good. They've like teased some of the content, or at least some of the changes. Fortify nerf. It sounds really funny because I'm so anti-defense nerf, and that's one of the things I'm going to be bringing up on my cast. But they're actually nerfing Fortify for casters, and that is actually something I've been suggesting for a long time. I always felt it weird that we used Fortify on everything, right? Casters getting it from shield charge, and I've always literally been suggesting that it should be, the buff should be based on how much damage you're doing. If you're doing 13 damage with the shield charge, you probably shouldn't be getting a full effect Fortify. So this is a very welcome change. However, obviously I want a large amount of rework to the entire defense system because it's currently not enough. This alone should be pretty interesting. Other than that, another big change is flasks are getting a proactive versus reactive mod pools, and this I'm going to press on a little bit as well on Wednesday, because other than just the mods as well, the flasks in general, we need some of the defense we lost from flasks either back to flasks or somewhere else, because flasks would patch over a lot of the problems that builds had when they didn't have block or dodge, and now we can't get block or dodge or everything, and then you're very scared of mapping. But basically, the flasks are going to have, for example, you can get adrenaline on a live flask, and that will give you a thing like, for example, onslaught, and you'll have the normal adrenaline. So they were going to have like a different set of reactive or proactive, depending on if it was like live flask or instant flask. So hopefully they can get flasks in a good place for 3.16 or 3.17. It's important that they're changing them. Obviously, they definitely did not nail it. And a big problem with the flask for me is the whole reactive proactive thing, because it's like they're telling us we want you to be reactive with flask and use freeze immunity when you're frozen. But if you're not proactive with flask and Path of Exile, you're in standard. You're dead. They're also giving us some quality of life back in flask with things like adrenaline. We'll have like up to 4 tiers now, so you would be able to like get tier 4 adrenaline endgame or tier 1. And that would be as much as 24% adrenaline possibly. And then not everything they're suggesting is necessarily set in stone. They were just being very open and honest and like, this is what we're looking at, this is what we're thinking about. Ailment rework as well. They're going to give us more options for dealing with ailments through corruptions, through uniques, through auras, etc. So this sounds really good because ailments is currently not in a good spot. Obviously, on quite a lot of builds, depending on what you are, you want to have a good way of dealing with them. Um, and you can't like reactively deal with them as easily now. One of the things that people talked about a lot was hard mode, and a lot of people are kind of upset about this. This seems a little blown out. This is not something a lot of people are going to play. This is not something that is really a big deal. It was kind of unfortunate that he brought it up so much, but they did learn some things from it. But I think this existing is a very, very good thing, because Chris Wilson obviously wants a much different game than what a lot of the people want. But this seems to be what's turning into something like a weekend project for him and some other devs. This isn't something they're allocating a large amount of resources in. And hard mode is basically going to be an extremely punishing and, well, I call it poverty mode from what it sounds like, where you barely get anything. And it's more like a roguelike than anything. And again, this is just what they're like. He's putting in some weekend time when he's not normally working on other stuff, because this is how he enjoys games and what he likes to be fun. So I'm surprised so many people are upset about this, because, better to have it there than in the main game for you guys that don't like that kind of stuff. I do like this kind of stuff, so I'm excited to play hard mode. But I think it's a good compromise, because now Like yeah, I feel like that's more working towards everybody being happy. I've seen even some content creators are like, well, we don't care about hard mode. And it's like, that's completely fine. Then don't play. It doesn't affect you. It's not something they're putting a large amount of resources into. It won't affect you. Something that a lot of people are very happy about is the Atlas reduction. If you currently feel like there's too many maps and too much content in Path of Exile to explore, regions are going to be reduced to 4 regions instead of 8. We don't know what's happening yet to passive points and stuff like that, but this is going to be a big quality of life thing for people that are struggling with the Atlas progression and feel like that's very overwhelming every patch. They're going down to 100 maps. So it'll be very interesting to see how that is. Personally, I like the more the better, but I also play a large amount. So very good for the game, I would say. Very good for the game. They talked about aspirational content, which is more endgame content at the very end, additional simulacrum waves, and an additional 5 to 10 simulacrum waves, meaning they would probably be very rewarding, very dangerous, and something that you would need a very hard build to be able to do. More rewards to really aspire. So they talked about Uber Legion, Uber Blighted maps, and this is really good that they're looking at that. Sounded like something like people like Grimro was missing, and maybe something that people that aren't even there yet can't even do the current endgame content, but they want more things to aspire towards. So that is really, really good for a lot of the people playing softcore, especially. This might be harder content to access and do on hardcore, but it's good to have those things there. So a lot of people sounded exceptionally excited at the aspirational content. They also addressed that the uniques have not been very exciting lately. I'm going to be pushing pretty hard on that on my podcast, talking more about chase items, more about chase uniques and stuff like that. They did say that for 3.16, Chris had mandated that he wanted all the uniques to be exciting and good, right? That's a very important thing for them. And I hope they follow up on that because it does get a little bit boring to see once uniques. We had a few cool ones. Ultimatum actually had some pretty good ones with the Maxolotls. Machination was an obviously insanely powerful item. I don't think it ever became worth very much because it's very complicated. And then you have the Hate Forge, which is the biggest chase item the game has ever seen. They talked about things like fragments and pickup range, and they specifically said pickup range seems fine to them right now. The main reason I disagree with that is because we still have instances of that getting stuck, like items getting stuck behind things in the game. Obviously, they don't want that to happen either, but I feel like a really nice like temporary fix is just double the pickup range. That like we don't need like screen wide pickup range. We just need slightly further than now, so things never get stuck behind anything. I definitely want to push more on that because pickup range is not fine. Fragments and artifacts, they did say that they were going to have like less things like that, less things to pick up. They've said that before, so I don't know. I hope they really, really do it. Another thing they talked about as well was mobility is fine. Mobility isn't that bad, but I definitely don't think it is super fine. I think Smoke Mine got hit a little bit too hard. Don't think Smoke Mine is particularly great to use now because the movement speed buff is so bad. So, I mean, it was mostly like a min-maxing thing for racers to use before. So maybe that's not the most important. I would love to hear how you guys feel about mobility. And as far as 3.15 goes, I don't feel like they're going to do a lot of mid-league nerfs or buffs. I think I really, really do agree with the way that they don't want to do mid-league nerfs, even when something is really OP. We only see that as like emergencies, right? I don't think they should have done the seismic changing the quality. Obviously, that was unintended, but leaving that OP for a league seems completely okay. It doesn't break the game, right? And even with like people are like, oh, but this they nerfed Aura Stacker, sure, but it went from being 37 million times stronger than other builds to 27 million times stronger than other builds. So that wasn't a problem either, right? Nobody's build got broken and unplayable. They just became slightly worse. So that kind of nerf I don't mind as much. But ideally, no mid league nerfs, right? Bug fixes, I get it. Mid league buffs, they sort of have the same reasoning for, but I actually disagree very much, and I really want to follow up on that again. I think it's very important to do mid league buffs on things that are incredibly broken and just not being played, especially if it's a new skill. I think it's very important that when a new skill is introduced, it is strong. It is fun to be playable. I don't mind if things get butchered the league after and we just keep seeing big meta shifts. As long as they like get their time and then maybe a year later get their time again, that's fine. I'll talk about that later, but that's an okay way of dealing about things. I think it's important like to maybe reconsider the stance on mid league buffs because I would way rather have that. I maybe I'm wrong here, but like he used an example like what if people feel really bad that they wanted to use that as a league starter, but that it looked really bad, but now we've buffed it and now we can play it. Like I don't know. That doesn't seem like a downside to me. That just seems good. I'd way rather it was usable at some point during the league. I don't think they're going to do a large amount of changes mid 3.15. There are some changes like bug fixes, like Storm Rain is getting fixed, the quality of life on like the visual effects. They talked a little bit about crafting and giving some quality of life there, taking things away from maybe Prophecy and Delve and making those easier to access, as well as making Unveils easier to access. So a lot of people seem pretty excited about that. They did talk about PoE 2, and that is further away than most people thought. A lot of people are hoping that it would, oh, is it next patch? Is it next patch, Zizaran? What about the patch after that? And PoE 2, they said that Act 1 is 90% done, and Act 2 is 70% done, and the other acts have been started, but they do want to hire like 100 people and work on that. Um, I mean, I'm enjoying PoE for the most part right now. It's not like I'm waiting for PoE to solve all the issues. I'm kind of scared of PoE 2. For me, that's not much of an issue. For some people, it is. A lot of people are hoping PoE 2 is going to fix all the issues they are having with the game. Like, for example, I like leveling, right? I don't mind doing the campaign. So I'm very lucky there. But that's unfortunate for a lot of people. They said should be, I'm guessing from what they said that it'll be like late 2023. They said it should be like around 2 years, it seemed like. They also seem like they have no plan for skipping to maps. They want to make sure that the experience is enjoyable. And here you have a very, very divisive thing. You have a lot of people who are like, but everybody hates it, Chris, which obviously isn't the case. There's quite a large amount of us, we're just not as vocal, that actually don't want to skip maps, right? I think we are probably like only 30%, 35% that don't want to skip. But still, there are a large amount of people that just want to click a button, be in maps, and just start grinding. I definitely prefer not that. I would definitely, my ideal scenario here would be, you have your Act 1 or your Act 2 choice, and then you go through whatever you want. And on the first character, that is like kind of slow and you are progressing and feeling progression. Then what I think is like a very good compromise, this is something I want to bring up, is you do have a large amount of players in the community that really don't. They don't like the leveling process. There's probably very little you can do to make them like the leveling process. I will be shook if they will like the leveling process in PoE 2. I don't think that's going to happen. That would be great, obviously, right? If everyone's like, you know what? Chris was right. The leveling process is awesome now. That would be excellent. However, since that is very likely not the case, I think it's important that we have some strong endgame things like we've had in the past, like Delve Gloves, where you would get like 90 elemental damage on your gloves, strong fossils or essences that work for the leveling process. That you don't have access to maybe your first or second character, but you can invest a little bit into and use some endgame stuff as leveling items on your third or fourth character and go faster. I think that would be a fairly good compromise where these people can then cut down a lot on the leveling process. Um, and you don't have to give them like endless ledge or a skip boost button. They did talk a little bit about party play as well. Apparently, it's a big topic about aura bots. Currently, the way I feel about it, I think something like aura bots is very good for the game. A build that you can really, really invest into. I specifically want aura bots deleted just because I feel alternate gems are really cool and I would love them to just be really cool for every build. I feel like aura bots is the main culprit and why they got nerfed so hard. But I do think it's important people have those builds that you can put 100, 200, 300x into for those, sweaty no-lifers on softcore. Like, I can't really do that as a sweaty no-lifer on hardcore, but I think it's good for people to have that. For monsters, they talk about the fact that overlapping stats can be really, really dangerous and AoE overlap, so they are going to address that as well. That seems good. They seem to be like decomplicating monsters. I'm excited to see where they're moving with that. So same with like Ultimatum could have been core if it wasn't spawning millions of rares. I'm excited to see that. I'll be pushing them a little bit hard on that too because part of the speed meta and why so many people want to go extremely fast is precisely because that if we don't one-shot them, then they one-shot us. And we don't have good defensive options right now after all the nerfs. So you aren't encouraged to invest into defense. You are encouraged to just blast, right? Even look at how people were clearing Delve at super deep Delve, right? It's all about glass cannon one-shotting things because that is a really, really good way to deal with it on software. So again, something I'm going to be bringing up on my podcast because I think they're kind of weird with how they're dealing with it right now. They did also talk about loot boxes and stuff like that. Obviously, I don't think a lot of people were happy with the answers here. They do have to make money from the game, obviously, but a lot of people aren't happy with loot boxes being as predatory as they are. I would also much rather loot boxes weren't in the game, but it is hard. Obviously, they do want to make a lot of money. So it's a hard balance to fight for sure. For sure. I don't know what the right answer is there. I'm very happy I don't have to deal with that. They also talked about a Reddit. Obviously, there has been a lot of like toxic comments and personal attacks and stuff. We do see threads making fun of the fact that some developers are like literally crying at all the negative feedback, and I think that is like kind of in bad taste, that people making fun of it and stuff, because when this is your life and like this is what you do for a living, you're very very tied to the game, right? It becomes a big part of your life. And if somebody does tell you like, hey, this is really getting to me, seeing all this negative feedback is really affecting me, then pushing that step further and putting that in bingo cards, like, oh, this made me cry, this made the community cry, that feels a little bit in bad taste. I am very, very critical and stuff, but I don't want to bully or make fun of people that this is a very big part of their lives, right? Same with streamers, right? It's a very big part of our lives. It's not as easy to disconnect. Having a little bit of compassion there, um, and telling people to harden up and stuff doesn't really work. It's important to listen to people when they say they're having a hard time. Like, it doesn't cost you that much having compassion. And I've been very negative the last 3 patches. There's a lot of things I don't like, but you can give concise feedback without resulting to personal attacks that are upsetting people. So I think that's important. Obviously, we've seen a lot of streamers, like a lot of the people on Baeclast Rise in particular, were having a really hard time and getting a lot of negative comments and being very open about that. And it's hard. Definitely try to be a little bit more compassionate with people. If you are one of the people, like, obviously, if you're sending death threats, that's, and obviously Reddit agrees with that, actual insanity, right? Same with the people sending death threats to, just maybe don't send death threats for any reason. Most people would probably agree with that. Either way, that's like the main points that I thought was really, really important. I will be spending a lot of time the next few days talking to the community. I'll probably make some spreadsheets and some posts asking, what do you guys, was there anything you didn't feel heard about? I'll read the comments on this video too. Like, did you not feel heard about something? Is there something you really felt was missing? There's a lot of things I'm gonna bring up. I'll make a video on that too. I'm gonna bring up like harvest and chase items and I would say build diversity, but that's actually the wrong word. Build diversity is never really going to be fixed. It's about build eligibility, or we need to use a different word, because build diversity is confusing GDD devs right now. Because build diversity has never really been. People are like, oh, it was so good build diversity in ritual, or so good build diversity in harvest. It wasn't. It was worse than now. Build diversity is not the word you're looking for, because quite a lot of people end up playing the same builds anyway, even if there are a lot of builds that are eligible to be played. Build variety, or there's a better word we should be using. Um, what is the problem? What people must feel? Most people feel very pigeonholed into builds right now. People end up playing the same build anyway. But so I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying we need to get better at phrasing it, because GGD are not carrying us right now on that. Even Legion, where people are very happy, had like 46% slayer. I'm exaggerating because I can't remember, but it was, many of these have had bad build diversity, even if they were popular. So we'll talk about a lot of that. I want to try to make sure everybody gets heard. We'll work on that a lot in the next few days. Hopefully you guys like that, and don't be too toxic with the comments. I'm trying to do this for you guys, right? Good stuff. Give some positivity, Monka S. I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys are enjoying the video. You guys have honestly been really great towards all the things I've been saying lately. Hope you guys are enjoying everything and all the content. Thanks for watching. Try to die less than I do.